Amazing millionaire discovers his humble employee's hidden talent, making a life-changing offer. Jake's heart raced as he pushed his mop across the polished floor of the law firm, the sound of it echoing through the otherwise quiet, glass-enclosed office. He glanced up at the towering skyscraper looming over him, a place where dreams were forged and broken in the blink of an eye. Each swipe of the mop felt like a reminder of his own unfulfilled ambitions. His family's voices haunted him, whispering that art was a foolish pursuit. They'd raised him to prize security over passion. As he cleaned, his mind drifted to the canvases hidden in his apartment. Each vibrant brushstroke a fragment of himself, waiting to be seen. He paused in the break room, the sustaining scent of stale coffee battling with his fears. What if someone caught him sketching again? The hastily drawn lines of a cityscape pulsed with life, yet each stroke felt like an act of rebellion. Just then, Lisa, the firm's formidable CEO, walked in. At first, he tried to hide the sketch, but her eyes locked onto his work, sparking a nervous energy between them. She was a titan in the business world, brilliant, ambitious, and yet there was a flicker of something vulnerable behind her steely exterior. In that moment, he knew she could see the part of him he had hidden for so long. "Wow," she breathed, glancing between Jake and his hasty creation. "I didn't know you could paint." The words cascaded in his mind like a tidal wave, pushing against his conditioning. What did it mean to share his passion with someone so powerful? He felt both exposed and validated, creativity clawing at the edges of his suppressed aspirations. But the shadows of doubt loomed heavy. How could he abandon the safety of his janitorial job for an unknown path? Before he could respond, she continued, "I've been thinking about hosting an art showcase. What if you were a part of it?" The offer hung in the air, mingling with Jake's rising anxiety. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Her ambition sparked something deep in him. Desire and fear clashed violently. Could he step into the light, revealing himself when his family had built their beliefs around him shadowed and safe? I don't know," he stuttered, feeling his pulse quicken. The tension in the room shifted. Lisa's eyes bore into him, searching for something more. The clock on the wall ticked audaciously, each click reminding him of the stakes at hand. His thoughts spiraled. Investors would expect returns, wouldn't they? This could be a trap. Confidence mistaken for foolishness. The weight of his family's expectations crashed against the flicker of excitement Lisa's proposal ignited. Uncertainty churned in his stomach. What kind of man would he be if he turned down this chance? Just then, a stranger entered the break room, and every eye turned towards him. Jake's breath hitched. Would this newcomer be another wall between him, already torn between dreams and obligations? The moment froze, tension thick enough to cut. All eyes awaited the stranger's response, and for a brief second, Jake felt like the weight of the world rested squarely on his shoulders. The stranger, a man in a crisp navy suit, seemed oblivious to the charged atmosphere. As he sauntered toward the coffee machine, he hummed softly, not registering the palpable tension in the room. Jake's mind raced. Would the newcomer undermine his moment? Did this man hold the key to his fate, or would he serve as a reminder of everything that could keep him shackled? Lisa's focus flickered between the stranger and Jake, a storm brewing behind her composed demeanor. The incessant ticking of the clock merged with the gentle drip of coffee, each sound echoing Jake's internal conflict. Here was the opportunity to finally step into the light, Yet the shadows of his upbringing felt dense, suffocating. "Hey, you okay?" Lisa's voice broke through his reverie. The genuine concern in her eyes momentarily stilled the turmoil within him. "I know this is a lot to take in." Jake drew a breath, trying to articulate a depth of emotion he couldn't fully grasp. "It's just, I don't know how to step away from what I'm comfortable with." Each word felt heavier than the one before. "What if I fail?" "Jake, you're not alone," she said, her tone dropping to a soothing softness that chipped at his fears. "You have talent. I see something in you that I want the world to see too." Could he truly pursue a path that felt so foreign? Could ambition ignite within him when all he knew was duty? The weight of her encouragement clashed with the bitter voice in his mind. His family's words echoed, telling him that art was impractical and foolish. Yet somehow, Lisa's belief made him begin to question the validity of those long-ingrained convictions. Just as he was about to respond, the stranger chimed in. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but is everything all right?" Instantly, Jake's nervousness swelled again. Speaking up felt like a leap into an abyss. Was it worth risking exposure? Would the stranger's questions unravel the fragile connection he was starting to forge with Lisa? "I was just talking about an art showcase," Lisa answered smoothly, redirecting the conversation. Jake watched as she regained her authority, the confidence in her voice evident. "Jake here has some remarkable talent we're considering highlighting." The stranger raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued but impassive. "Art, you say? I have an aunt in the industry. Maybe I could put you in touch." Suddenly, the tension shifted again. A potential ally presented itself. But Jake felt a creeping sense of inadequacy as doubt swirled. What if he disappointed Lisa? What if, in pursuing this opportunity, he found himself drowning in comparisons to those deemed worthy by professional standards? "Thanks, but Jake began hesitantly, his insecurities threatening to articulate every fear he possessed. Lisa interjected, her gaze fierce. "You should absolutely consider it, Jake. This could open doors you never knew existed." Her faith in him both invigorated and terrified him. As the conversation shifted to business, Jake's mind buzzed. In the swirl of uncertainty, a spark ignited, a desire to explore, to grow, to reshape his future into something driven by passion rather than fear. He felt for the first time a resolve forming inside him, an urge to fight through every wave of anxiety pulling him down. Yet, as he looked at Lisa's encouraging smile, a nagging worry crept back in. This thrill of determination was intertwined with a fear of exposure. What if this newfound ambition revealed a more vulnerable side he wasn't ready to show? Determined, he silently vowed to ponder Lisa's offer more seriously. He would weigh the stakes and decide whether the path of an artist was within his reach. Just then, a momentary silence descended, and all eyes turned to him again. It was finally his turn to respond, an invitation to embrace a new reality or retreat into the shadows. The moment quivered with anticipation. Jake stood at a crossroads, and this decision could alter everything. Would he seize this chance to define himself, or would he slip back into the shadows of fear? In that defining moment, his heart raced, knowing the weight of that choice would reverberate for the rest of his life. Jake stood there, caught in the moment, the weight of everyone's anticipation pressing down on him. The stranger's composed demeanor seemed worlds away from the trembling thoughts that raced through his mind. This was a juncture he never imagined facing, yet here he was, teetering on the edge of a decision that felt monumental. Each second felt like an eternity, his thoughts oscillating between the lingering fears of inadequacy and the nascent flickers of hope igniting within him. What would it mean to embrace his artistic aspirations? Could he face the harsh judgments of the world beyond those soft protective walls he had built around himself? "Jake," Lisa's gentle nudge drew him out of his spiral. Her eyes were locked onto him with a mixture of encouragement and expectation that made him want to rise to the occasion, yet doubt still clung to his thoughts like a persistent fog. He started, grappling for the right words. Instinct urged him to retreat, to simmer down the flames of ambition before they could engulf him. But as he turned to Lisa, he recognized the unwavering belief she had in him, and it sparked something fierce inside. "Maybe I should take the opportunity," he finally said, challenging the internal voices that had held him prisoner for too long. The instant he voiced it, a sense of clarity surged, washing over his anxiety. The stranger's expression shifted to one of interest, leaning slightly closer as if Jake's words had power. "That's the spirit. It's all about taking that leap." A mix of excitement and terror pulsed through Jake, yet the realization that he had broken free from his internal shackles felt exhilarating. In that moment, he decided to embrace a path not just of creative expression, but one where he could discover more of who he truly was. "Good," Lisa affirmed, a proud smile breaking across her face. "You won't regret it." Her support fortified his resolve, slowly erasing the shadows of self-doubt as he began envisioning what this new journey could mean. Over the next few weeks, an unwavering wave of energy propelled Jake forward. He evolved from the shadows, immersing himself in his art. His hands, once hesitant and unsure, began to move with assurance. Once familiar canvases filled with muted colors and timid strokes grew vibrant and bold, echoing the change deep within. Each brushstroke became a testament to his determination, a rebellion against the suffocating ceiling of expectations set by his upbringing. He experimented with techniques and styles, finding a voice he had buried for too long beneath layers of fear and conformity. Yet as he poured himself into this artistic awakening, unexpected challenges began to loom. With every layer of paint he brushed on, the weight of his past continually beckoned, whispering reminders of the fears he'd thought he outran. Each exhibition and critique became a trial by fire that tested his courage to stand up and be seen. Lisa remained a steady presence, encouraging him to share his work. But the closer he got to revealing his passion, the weight of vulnerability intensified. Art was not just about creation. It bore the risk of exposure, of scrutiny. The fear of rejection now loomed larger than ever. One afternoon, after what felt like a breakthrough in his portfolio, Jake arrived at the gallery where they would be showcasing selected artists' work. His heart raced as he stood among accomplished peers, each exuding confidence as they prepared to share their talents with the world. Suddenly, the doubt surged back. What if nothing he created was good enough? He grappled with an impending sense of inadequacy that threatened to swallow him whole. As observers drifted toward his corner of the gallery, he realized he stood at another defining moment, one that called for boldness like never before. Would he rise to the challenge and allow his art to speak? Or would he shrink back into anonymity? With sweat beading on his brow, he stood resolutely before his work, heart pounding, awaiting the moment of truth. The thrill of possibility mingled with the chill of fear. The stage was set for an unveiling that could change everything as Jake prepared to confront his deepest insecurities. But just as he was about to introduce his latest piece, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, one that could flip his entire future on its axis. He drew a breath, knowing the moment had come to confront not just the audience, but the very shadows of himself he had tried to escape. As Jake stood before his artwork, the familiar face in the crowd sent a shiver down his spine. The vibrant colors of his painting blurred momentarily as memories flooded him. The stark contrasts between his life and the evident success represented by that face, a reminder of the world he once thought he would never leave. The stranger's presence ignited a swirling tempest of emotions within him. Flashes of past encounters, laden with unspoken judgment, danced in his mind. What would they think of him now, an aspiring artist on the brink of unveiling his work? Would they snicker at his attempts, dismiss his creations as frivolous? With each heartbeat, doubt tugged at him, threatening to unravel everything he had worked so hard to build. He forced himself to focus, taking a deep breath to steady his racing heart. In that moment, he reminded himself that this was more than a mere exhibition. It was a testament to his journey, a battle against the chains of expectation and self-doubt. He realized that the path he'd chosen contained not just the risk of rejection, but fundamentally the potential for liberation. He was no longer just a shy shadow. He was an artist ready to be seen. As the crowd swelled before him, Jake took a step forward, the warmth of Lisa's supportive gaze bolstering his confidence. He felt tangible energy coursing through him, propelling him to seize his moment. A low murmur rippled through the crowd, curiosity peaking with anticipation. "Thank you all for coming," he began, the sound of his voice a tentative tremor. "This piece reflects not just what I see, but the journey I've undergone to reach this point." Each word, once marred by uncertainty, now emerged with a clear intention behind them. His eyes flitted back to the familiar face, which now appeared more curious than judgmental. It was a subtle shift, one that spurred a newfound boldness within him. Perhaps rejection wouldn't be the only outcome. Perhaps, just perhaps, there would be acceptance and even admiration. As he spoke about the thoughts and feelings that underscored his creation, he felt an unexpected surge of clarity. Sharing his artistic process alleviated some of the weight, peeling back layers of insecurity. The vulnerability began to transform, evolving into a strength he hadn't fully recognized before. But as he enveloped the audience in his narrative, the familiar face captivated him. It belonged to Malcolm, a wealthy art collector known for his eye for talent. Just last month, Jake had overheard whispers about Malcolm's significant investments in emerging artists. The thought sent an exhilarating jolt through him. Could this be his chance? He glanced at Malcolm again, noticing the way his attention seemed fully captivated by Jake's words. This was not the time to fade into the canvas, but to create a bold stroke that could alter his pathway completely. The space lifted, charged with a new kind of electricity as Jake concluded his introduction. "Art, for me, is about exploring identity, confronting fears, and breaking free from the confines we've grown accustomed to. I hope this piece resonates with you as deeply as it does with me." With that, he stepped back, revealing the full scope of his work, bursting colors swirling in an emotional tapestry that both reflected vulnerability and resilience. The silence was palpable, a tense moment pregnant with anticipation for what would follow. As Jake breathed in the atmosphere thick with apprehension, he registered a gradual shift in the crowd. They leaned in closer, whispering amongst themselves, the initial judgment dissipating into intrigued conversation. But that familiar face, Malcolm remained still, the specter of possibility hovering around him. Would he approach Jake after the display? Would he see the spark of potential ignited in this unexpectedly bold artist? Jake's heart raced anew, with both hope and trepidation, caught between the thrill of possibility and the fear of rejection. Then, with surprising suddenness, Malcolm stepped forward from the crowd, eyes ablaze with intent, and Jake could only wait breathlessly, anticipating the pivotal words that would follow. The fear he had battled for so long transformed into a burning drive, ready to embrace whatever Malcolm would say, for it could shatter or elevate the foundation he had painstakingly built. "Jake," Malcolm began, his voice steady and commanding, "I see something incredibly unique in your work, a spark that could thrive with the right guidance. Let's discuss how we can elevate your career." In that fleeting instant, the weight of uncertainty shifted dramatically. This was no longer just a moment of unveiling art. It was the precipice of a new chapter, teetering between possibility and profound change. As Jake fought the urge to retreat, he confronted a deeper truth within. He had finally entered the landscape of his dreams.
Yet the road ahead was rife with unknowns that loomed just beyond the horizon. As Malcolm's words echoed in the charged atmosphere, Jake's mind raced. The invitation hung delicately in the air, offering a taste of what could lie ahead, but also a sharp reminder of the risks that accompanied such opportunities. What did it mean to elevate his career? Was he ready for the scrutiny and expectations that would undoubtedly follow? The crowd's murmurs faded into a buzzing in his ears, replaced with the relentless pounding of his heart. In that moment, the reverberations of his inner doubts clashed with the flickering embers of ambition. Could this be a turning point, or was he headed for yet another disappointment? Malcolm stepped closer, his piercing gaze still fixed on Jake, and suddenly the
weight of the conversation pressed down on him. With each passing second, Jake felt the gravity of his decision pulling him in two opposing directions: the lure of ambitious dreams and the nagging familiarity of self-doubt. "Let's talk about how I can help you create a series," Malcolm continued, his tone inviting yet assertive. "I believe there's a deeper narrative within your art that deserves to be seen." Those words, deeper narrative, hit Jake with unexpected force. He had poured his heart into that piece, drenched in stories and conflicting emotions. How had Malcolm seen what others so often overlooked? It felt uncanny and affirming all at once. "Thank you, Malcolm," Jake managed to say, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'd love to know what you envision." As they turned away from the gathering crowd, Jake's thoughts spiraled into plans and scenarios, each one weaving intricate dreams interlaced with uncertainty. He had learned early in his life that even the brightest opportunities could be shrouded by shadows. He approached the prospect carefully. "I see potential for a gallery show," Malcolm suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. "We'd need to explore your concepts further and refine your style to match market expectations, but I know you have what it takes to capture attention." Jake nodded, absorbing every word. Yet another layer of anxiety enveloped him. Market expectations? Was that another way of saying he'd need to bend to commercial desire? The idea felt like an encroaching storm cloud looming over his burgeoning creativity, ready to drown the passion with practicalities. "But I don't want to lose the essence of what my art represents," Jake responded, a thread of fervor threading through his uncertainty. "I want to express authenticity, not just follow trends." Malcolm regarded him thoughtfully, a hint of respect flickering in his expression. "Authenticity is key, and I wouldn't ask you to compromise that. Instead, let's find a way to combine your unique vision with the market's appetite. The world craves authentic voices." The conversation shifted as Malcolm began sketching out plans for a series that blended personal themes with commercial viability. For the first time, Jake found himself actively participating in the dialogue about his own future, not just as a receptive artist, but as an empowered thinker. The gears of his career were grinding into motion, energizing him in ways he had never anticipated. Yet beneath that surge of creativity lay an unsettling question. Was he ready to embrace an identity that straddled both passionate artist and business-minded creator? As the day wore on, the weight of this new reality settled heavily on him, occupying both his mind and heart. He had walked the path of an artist grounded in vulnerability, but would he now forge a path that felt alien to him? "I'll think about it," Jake offered hesitantly, aware of the words threading his own path forward. To pursue this meant reevaluating everything he had known so far. It was thrilling, yet terrifying. "Take your time," Malcolm replied, a glint of understanding in his eyes. "This is your journey. Just know that when you're ready, I'm here to help." As they parted ways, Jake stepped out of the gallery and into a reality tinged with possibilities and perils. The sunlight felt different, illuminating the contours of his uncertainty. He was standing at a crossroads. The whispers of self-doubt still taunted him, but the blend of fear and ambition created a heady mix. What lay at the end of this new road? Jake took a deep breath. contemplating the audacity of change, and wondered if he would have the courage to seize this moment or let it slip away like so many before. With his heart racing, he recognized that the real challenge had only just begun. He looked back, scanning the gallery entrance, and thought, what if, in pursuit of success, he discovered parts of himself he had yet to understand? He was on the verge of something significant, but would he have the resolve to embrace the unknown? Tomorrow would be monumental. Jake had to confront not only the decisions at hand, but also the shadows that lingered in his mind, threatening to derail him as he took the first steps into uncharted territory. And the question loomed larger than ever. Was he truly prepared to redefine his future? With dawn's early light spilling through his window, Jake felt the familiar tension coil tightly in his chest. The day ahead held uncharted possibilities, yet an unsettling restlessness gnawed at him. Each heartbeat resonated with the gravity of his recent conversation with Malcolm, echoing the urgent questions swirling in his mind. Could he truly balance artistry with commercial demands? The yearning for authenticity versus the drive for recognition felt like two opposing forces dragging him in different directions. He pushed himself out of bed, intent on gathering his thoughts. The small art studio where he worked sat within his modest apartment, a sacred space where inspiration was born. As he stepped inside, the faint smell of paint lingered, reminding him of late nights and unfinished canvases. He glanced at his latest work, vibrant colors colliding in chaotic harmony, and questioned its place in the larger world. Would it speak to people under the glossy glare of galleries and critique? Sitting cross-legged on the worn wooden floor, Jake let his mind wander. Art had always been his sanctuary, a realm defined by personal truths rather than profit margins. He had never aspired for fame. He craved connection, a raw exchange forceful enough to move hearts. Wasn't that the reason he had picked up a brush in the first place? But now, with Malcolm's words weighing heavily on him, he sensed the stakes had shifted. His phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. A text from Malcolm broke through the stillness. "Let's meet later today to brainstorm. Excited to explore your series further." A jolt of anxiety crashed over him. While the prospect was exhilarating, the fear that shadowed him was relentless. What if didn't measure up to the expectations set before him? What if his unrefined ideas were inadequate in the face of what the market demanded? The fear of failing at the only thing he ever wanted to excel in loomed large. Instead of succumbing to dread, he channeled it, staring at a blank canvas before him. Grabbing a brush, he dipped it in thick paint. With each stroke, he felt the tension release, allowing self-doubt to melt away upon the fabric. In this moment, he was just an artist, unhindered by the expectations of others. He painted furiously, layering colors, envisioning every vibrant hue as a voice that could transcend the pressure of commercialism. Hours passed like minutes, and as the sun dipped lower in the sky, he stood back to examine his work. It didn't feel like a compromise, but rather a manifestation of his struggle. An idea began to form. What if he could accept the challenge of blending his authenticity with market trends? What if he could create art that resonated not only with his inner self, but also with an audience craving sincerity? Fueled by determination, Jake decided to embrace this opportunity, willing to confront his fears. As he looked around his studio, he felt a surge of clarity. Perhaps the real test lay not in abandoning his artistic voice, but in amplifying it through new channels. Moving to his laptop, he drafted ideas for the series Malcolm had proposed. Sketches of concepts merged with notes about themes he would explore. Each line he wrote felt like an affirmation of his intent, a pathway through the chaos of his thoughts. Yet amidst this moment of clarity lingered a new question. Was he prepared to face the inevitable criticism that would accompany his new direction? The prospect of showcasing this personal journey felt audacious yet terrifying.
Later that evening, he met Malcolm at a trendy downtown cafe, the ambiance buzzing with chatter. As the two settled into a corner, Jake could hardly contain his nervous energy. "I've been thinking about the series," he said, trying to gauge Malcolm's reaction. "I want to explore themes of struggle and resilience through my work, but express it in a way that connects with people commercially." Malcolm's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That's the spirit. Let's combine your raw narratives with compelling visuals. If we tap into those experiences, your art may resonate even deeper." Jake swallowed hard, the encouragement both thrilled and terrifying him. He could sense the beginning of a journey into a realm where his artistic identity would face scrutiny and perhaps transform. Here was an opportunity to dive into the fear, yet something held him back. "Malcolm, what if it's not good enough?" Jake's voice trembled under the weight of his vulnerability. "Then we'll make it better together," Malcolm replied confidently. "Every artist faces criticism. It's your growth that counts, but the world needs your voice." Jake stared at his mentor, a mixture of fear and longing swirling inside him. The moment beckoned, a moment that could redefine everything. Could he escape the shadows of inadequacy that threatened to consume him? Could this journey lead him not only to success, but to a deeper understanding of himself? With a deep breath, he took the plunge, realizing that sometimes the hardest part was not the art itself, but the courage to stand behind it. As they delved deeper into ideas, Jake began to sense a shift. The lines of uncertainty were beginning to blur, and, as if sensing his growing resolve, Malcolm leaned closer, an inviting smile on his lips. "What if we could build a narrative together that not only showcases your art, but also captures your evolution as an artist?" Jake felt his heart race again, a surge of hope mingling with apprehension. The journey to redefine himself was just beginning, yet it stood on the brink of something profoundly transformative. The question now loomed larger than ever. Would he have the strength to truly embrace this change, or would he falter in the face of expectations and fear? The following morning, Jake awoke with a newfound resolve. The unease that had shadowed him like a relentless specter began to dissipate, replaced by a flicker of determination. He stretched and ran a hand through his disheveled hair, the weight of the previous day's revelations still fresh, but now tinted with opportunity. As he prepared for the day, his mind whirred with the ideas he and Malcolm had discussed. The potential for his art to evolve into something deeper and more relatable drowned out the voice of doubt that tried to resurface. Could he truly meld his personal journey with a universally resonant narrative? Each brushstroke felt like part of that emerging story waiting to be told. His steps toward the art studio felt lighter, and once inside, the familiar smell of paint was invigorating rather than overwhelming. Today would not be about fear. It would be about progress. He set to work with zeal, dismantling the barriers he had built within himself. Every hue he mixed was a layer of his internal struggle, each stroke a testament to his resilience. He envisioned scenes that portrayed not just his own battles, but the universal idea of confronting one's own limitations. An hour passed, then two, as canvases began to fill with vivid illustrations of struggle, vulnerability, and strength. With each passing moment, Jake could hear Malcolm's encouragement echo in his mind like a mantra. "The world needs your voice." It was liberating and terrifying all at once, but beneath that fear lay a burgeoning passion pushing him forward. Then, as he worked on a particularly striking piece reflecting the chaos of conflict and resolution, his cell phone buzzed again. It was Malcolm, asking for a follow-up meeting to discuss evolving the concepts further. Adrenaline pumped through Jake as he read the message. He felt both excitement and a twinge of apprehension. What if he hadn't quite grasped the essence of what Malcolm proposed? What if the work he created would ultimately fail to convey what he had envisioned? Pushing those thoughts aside, he dove into preparation for the meeting, crafting a presentation that showcased his artwork and articulated the story behind it. Suddenly, Jake was not just an artist, he was a storyteller, weaving his experience into the brush, a translator connecting emotions with colors. As the sun slipped beneath the horizon, painting the evening sky with deep oranges and purples, Jake headed to the cafe again. Each step felt heavier now, the weight of expectation returning and mingling with his growing hunger for validation. It was no longer just about artistic expression. It felt like a defining moment in his career. Upon arrival, he spotted Malcolm at their usual spot, his demeanor upbeat but serious. "Glad to see you. I've been eager for this discussion," Malcolm said as he gestured for Jake to sit. Soon, they were in the thick of it, with Jake laying bare his concepts, nervously presenting his works while keeping an eye on Malcolm's reactions. With each painting he shared, Jake's voice grew steadier, his passion igniting evident interest in Malcolm's eyes. "You've captured something here, Jake. There's truth in your work. The struggle, the yearning, it's palpable," Malcolm exclaimed, leaning forward, clearly impressed. Yet, amid the encouraging feedback, something unsettling lingered beneath the surface. Would the depth of his emotions translate well to an audience that placed a premium on aesthetic appeal? "But do you think they'll truly resonate, Malcolm?" he couldn't help but ask, fishing for affirmation. Malcolm took a moment before responding. "Jake, those who seek art want honesty, and they can discern manufactured narratives from heartfelt ones. This has the potential to touch lives." A silence hung in the air, giving Jake a moment to absorb the depth of Malcolm's words. Yet his self-doubt crept back in, coiling tightly around his heart. Was he truly ready for this venture, for the very scrutiny that could either elevate him or shatter his confidence entirely? "Okay," he finally managed to say, "I'm in. But I need guidance on how to navigate feedback and criticism. That scares me more than anything." In that moment, Malcolm smiled, a mixture of understanding and encouragement dawning on his expression. "You're on the path, Jake. Embrace the uncertain and allow it to shape you. Let's ensure your voice cuts through the noise of cynicism." Jake nodded, feeling a shift within himself, a growing affirmation that perhaps he could indeed evoke something genuine through his work, even if it came with the risk of disapproval. The conversation shifted gears, diving deeper into marketing strategies and creating connections with the right audiences. As they spoke, Jake wrote notes fervently, feeling his vision becoming clearer with each word exchanged. The evening drew to a close, excitement and anxiety twirling within him. Now, an artist with a purpose, he stood at the precipice of an evolution, one that begged the question, could he not only confront his past, but also prepare his future in a world that often felt dark and intimidating? As they parted ways, a sense of urgency combined with apprehension filled the air. Determined yet apprehensive, Jake returned home, the echoes of his ambitions hovering around him. He faced the blank canvas once again, the challenge of blending his soul with commercial viability only intensifying. Was he bold enough to not just create art that represented his journey, but also to stand defensively behind it, ready to face whatever scrutiny awaited him? Or would the weight of the endeavor crush him before he could take flight? The moment of truth was looming, but in which direction would it lead him? Jake stood in front of the blank canvas, his pulse drumming in his ears. The evening light filtered through his small studio window, casting long shadows that danced across the floor, mirroring the turmoil within him. Every fiber of his being wanted to leap into creation, yet he found himself paralyzed by the weight of potential. What if this piece didn't resonate? What if the very soul he poured into it became a target for ridicule? Taking a deep breath, he grabbed a palette knife. It trembled slightly in his grip, but he remembered Malcolm's words, "Embrace the uncertain." He hesitated, but that spark of determination ignited once more. He swiped the knife on the canvas, creating bold strokes of red and black, colors that screamed of conflict and intensity, mirroring his internal chaos. As he worked, the frustration began to dissipate, replaced by focus. Each cut of the knife was cathartic, releasing pent-up anxiety. He lost himself in the rhythm of creation, the color blending, coalescing into images of struggle, pain, and resilience. Hours slipped by, and as midnight neared, the canvas transformed into a chaotic yet powerful narrative, reflecting his deepest fears and desires. Yet when he stepped back to view his labor, discontent prickled at the edges of his satisfaction. Did it truly convey honesty, or was it merely a reflection of his turmoil? He could hear whispers of self-doubt echoing through his mind, sowing seeds of confusion. Was this what Malcolm referred to as authenticity? Surely more was required for the connection he sought, something deeper than mere expression. That night, sleep eluded him. Jake tossed and turned, grappling with the impending feedback session with Malcolm. He scrutinized each aspect of his work, questioning the commercial viability against his artistic integrity. This niggling concern grew into obsession, consuming his thoughts until he felt overwhelmed, caught in a web of expectation and fear. In the early hours of dawn, he jolted upright. Inspiration had struck him with fresh clarity. He quickly brewed coffee, the rich aroma invigorating his senses, pushing away the night's anxiety. Armed with conviction, he ruminated on what Malcolm had said about honesty in art. Was it not his struggle that rendered him relatable? Wouldn't it ground his work in the authenticity he craved? With renewed energy, he re-entered his studio, determined to refine his piece. This time, though, he would integrate voices into the chaos. He grabbed charcoal and began to etch words along the borders of the canvas. We fight, we stumble, we rise. A pulse of excitement coursed through him as he kept layering not just pigments, but profound affirmations that captured both despair and hope. Time melted away, and soon the first golden rays of light slipped through the window. As Jake examined the evolving story, he could feel his anxiety morph into something else, a sense of purpose. If he could bring the audience into his world, share not just his triumphs, but also his failures, perhaps they would see the truth behind the colors. With an hour to spare before his meeting, Jake meticulously reviewed his presentation. He structured it not just to showcase images, but to unravel the narratives behind them. Each piece now held a story, a personal journey lifted from the canvas into shared experience. As he prepared to leave, he felt a surge of anticipation mixed with fear. This was not merely about sharing his work with Malcolm anymore. It was about standing firm in the authenticity of his experiences. If the outcome unsettled him, he had to remain steadfast. Jake stared at the collection of canvases one last time before heading out, knowing that today mattered. This was the moment he would put his vulnerability on display. Arriving at the cafe, Jake's heart thumped erratically, battling a cocktail of excitement and dread. He spotted Malcolm already seated, his gaze scanning the bustling cafe, alive with the energy of early morning patrons. Jake swallowed hard, steeling himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "Hey, Jake!" Malcolm greeted him with palpable enthusiasm, as if sensing the transformation within him. "Hi, Malcolm. I'm ready." The words felt charged with determination, as if they could serve as a foundation for the coming discussion. "Great, let's dive into what you've created," Malcolm replied, eyes alight with curiosity. As Jake set the canvases before them, the conversation soon spiraled into a crucible of feedback. Yes, she said it resonated with authenticity. But then it struck him. Louis had also mentioned using art to draw in the viewer first, then revealing the deeper narratives beneath the surface. Was he prepared for feedback that could pierce the heart of his soul? Deep in thought, Jake's fists clenched involuntarily around his notes. Would he defend his work, or would he adapt, perhaps compromising his voice for approval? The time had come to face the looming uncertainty that awaited like a storm on the horizon. Would his courage to be vulnerable end up elevating him, or would it expose him to relentless scrutiny? The tension was palpable, a battlefield of emotion and expectation, set as Malcolm's discerning gaze shifted to the first canvas showcasing raw vulnerability.
Malcolm leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the first canvas. "This piece," he began, "it's raw, intense, and it feels real. But is it the truest representation of what you're trying to convey?" Jake's heart raced. Each word felt like a subtle challenge, a beckoning for something greater. "What do you mean?" Malcolm pointed to the chaotic swirls of color. "You're expressing your turmoil, yes, but is it the struggle that defines you? Or is it how you rise from that struggle that really tells your story?" The question unsettled Jake. Had he been too focused on the pain, thinking that showcasing his wounds would resonate more profoundly? He had embedded his doubts into the layers of paint. Now it felt like he had built a wall instead of a bridge. "You're leaning into conflict, but I see potential for redemption, for hope," Malcolm continued. "What if you reframed some of this? What if your narrative shifts from merely fighting to showing how those fights influence who you are today?" Jake took a deep breath. The suggestion sent jolts through him, igniting deeper introspection. So it's not just about the struggle itself, but what follows? The lessons, the resilience? "Exactly," Malcolm affirmed, his voice full of encouragement. "But remember, this isn't merely academic, it's emotional. Can you convey that transition?" The gears in Jake's mind turned. Each stroke of the knife and flick of the brush now had a purpose that transcended mere expression and ventured into storytelling. He needed to peel back layers and confront his evolution, not just his existence within chaos. Shifting nervously, Jake leaned into the opportunity. "What if I focused more on the rising part? I can still show the shadows, but intersperse them with moments of light, small victories, revelations, kind of like a journey through darkness into a brighter view." Malcolm smiled, a shift in his demeanor conveying approval. "Now you're catching on. You're not erasing your past, you're evolving beyond it. That balance is what will resonate with those experiencing their own battles. But keep in mind, don't shy away from pain completely. That's still a part of life." Jake absorbed Malcolm's feedback. How could he transform the narrative without losing the essence of his experiences? He felt energized, yet the complexity of his next steps sent a tremor of fear through him. Could he be honest while uplifting the narrative? Was there a trap in trying to portray something brighter when the shadows felt so real? The conversation continued, revolving around his other pieces. Each canvas sparked more discussions that blurred the line between critique and counsel. With every passing moment, Jake's confidence began to swell, yet uncertainty flickered in his gut. His urge to protect his vulnerability clashed against the necessity of opening up, a paradox he had not fully anticipated. By the time they finished, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow that seemed to echo his newfound understanding. He glanced at Malcolm, his mentor, and an inexplicable urge to dive deeper gripped him. "Do you think this journey will end up changing my—"
Should I embrace this shift? Malcolm leaned back, contemplating. Art is about evolution. You're already on that path. But don't forget, it's about remembering who you are and adapting that into your work. It's not about losing yourself, it's about finding more layers within yourself to express. As they parted ways, Jake felt the weight of accountability settle on his shoulders. The fight within him was more profound than he had anticipated. For the first time, he was fueled not just by fear of judgment, but by the possibility of connection, the thrilling prospect of vulnerability wrapping itself around his impending metamorphosis. Returning to his studio, he rushed to the canvas, armed with fresh perspective. Each brushstroke became a concert of emotions. He recalled the stories of resilience and growth he had observed in friends, their paths filled with obstacles that ultimately led to triumph. What would it feel like to capture those essences on canvas, to immortalize both the struggle and subsequent victory? Just as he began to layer these insights into his work, a sudden thought struck him. He had been so focused on his struggles that he had neglected to acknowledge the support systems that had bolstered his journey. But who were the characters in this narrative? A familiar voice echoed in his mind, pushing at the edges of his memory. Lewis, his friend, his confidant. They had shared many late-night coffee sessions filled with laughter and dreams. What would Lewis think about this transformation? Jake paused, reflecting. Perhaps inviting others into his narrative extended beyond mere mentorship. The deeper challenge was how to weave in the contributions of those who stood by him during his struggles. As he stood over the canvas, brush poised, he recognized that his art would not only depict his evolution, but also weave together the experiences of those around him. The time had come for a new layer, inviting a collaborative essence. Yet, how would he honor their journeys without losing focus on his own? Unsure yet determined, he faced the canvas, ready to explore not just his narrative of struggle and rise, but also the interconnected stories that made him who he was. Could this amalgamation birth something greater, something he hadn't yet considered? With his hand poised over the canvas again, the excitement thrummed through him, promising that the exploration of his inner and outer worlds was merely beginning. What revelations awaited him as he continued this profound investigation? Jake stood in his studio, the air thick with the scent of paint and possibility. As he surveyed his latest work, a wave of transformation washed over him. He was no longer the hesitant janitor who concealed his artistry. Instead, he had emerged as an artist ready to share his vision, evoking emotions with every stroke. The dense shadows of self-doubt that once weighed heavily on him were gradually lifting, replaced by a confidence that resonated in each vibrant hue. Over weeks of honing his craft, his artistic identity had crystallized. With Malcolm's guidance, Jake began to explore the delicate balance between his personal truth and the external scrutiny that accompanied his ventures into the professional art world. This journey would not merely be an exhibition of work, but a testament to resilience and growth, a narrative woven intricately between struggle and triumph. In the days since their last meeting, Jake immersed himself in creating a series that highlighted not only his internal battles, but also the uplifting moments that followed. His canvases now reflected the arcs of transformation, colors morphing from deep grays and blacks symbolizing turmoil into bright whites, yellows, and greens that embodied hope and renewal. Each piece became a visual diary chronicling his emotional evolution, inviting viewers in to experience the tension and resolution alike. Jake's artwork would tell stories not confined to his own experiences, but merge the narratives of those around him, friends who had guided him through his darkest times. He began to incorporate figures and elements that represented these supportive relationships, allowing their influence to lend depth to his journey. The intricate layers of his artistic process stood as metaphors for the interconnectedness of human experience. Invoking the memory of Lewis brought inspiration to his palette as well. Creativity often thrived in community, not isolation, and Jake decided to extend that theme throughout his work. The thought excited him, igniting a spark of energy he hadn't felt before. This newfound understanding of collaboration infused his artistic ambition with purpose. The day of the showcase arrived, and Jake felt an electricity in the air. The gallery buzzed with anticipation, guests mingling under soft lights that illuminated the vibrancy of the pieces displayed. As he prepared, the mixture of exhilaration and anxiety coiled in his chest like a taut spring. Was he truly prepared for the exposure? Would they see the authenticity he poured into every piece, or would it remain overshadowed by fear of judgment? Stepping into the gallery felt monumental. The moment was as if he were standing on the precipice of a leap into the unknown. But for the first time, he felt a solid sense of ownership over his narrative. This was not merely art, it was his voice, boldly speaking to the world and sharing the raw, intimate truths that shaped him. He took a deep breath, letting the energy of the room wash over him and guide him forward. As guests began to gather, the conversations around art and life unfolded like blossoms. Jake moved among them, proudly sharing insights into his pieces, expressing the thoughts and emotions that informed his creations. The willingness to be vulnerable ignited connections. His raw passion resonated with others, inviting reflections and dialogues that brought his work to life beyond the canvas. It became evident that this wasn't just about the art, it was a communal experience of shared humanity. Every nod at understanding, every thoughtful expression in response to his narratives amplified the sense of validation he yearned for. When Malcolm approached him, a smile illuminating his face,
Jake knew that this was not merely an acknowledgement of success. It was recognition of the journey he had undertaken, the growth, the depth of self-discovery, and the embrace of his multifaceted identity as an artist. "Jake, this is incredible," Malcolm praised, glancing over the pieces. "You've come so far, and it truly shows. You're no longer just presenting art, you're articulating a story." Jake's heart swelled with pride. It was no longer just about achieving recognition. It was about having faith in his own voice and ability to connect through art. The looming shadows of self-doubt had receded, illuminating a future that brimmed with possibility. The event unfolded beautifully, guests expressing their appreciation for the authenticity that filled the room. One by one, art enthusiasts and collectors began to approach him, intrigued not only by the pieces on display, but also by the authenticity he exuded. With every conversation, Jake felt himself stepping more fully into his role as an artist. The urgency of recognition subsided, replaced by a deep satisfaction. He was finally embracing his passion, intertwining it with the essence of who he was. Each connection he forged at the gallery ignited the realization that this was just the beginning. As the night came to a close, Jake looked around and saw a mix of admiration and understanding reflected in the eyes of those who had come to witness his journey. They recognized not just the artworks, but the struggles and successes woven into each piece. The shadows of the past had transformed into stepping stones, and he stood taller than ever in the light of his achievement. Jake had conquered his internal conflicts. He emerged as a confident artist, capable of manifesting his dreams, ready to embrace the world with open arms. The canvas of his future was alive with color, and he was prepared to paint on, undaunted, unashamed, and undeniably himself. Now, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover transformative journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about how Jake's evolution resonates with you. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Real change starts with real support.